The thing about Funcom is the fact that it was done in 18 months. So I can show you a lot of different obstacles and which rules we developed to surpass these obstacles and what happened to the end as well. So I won't spoil it. One of the things about building a culture, it's about the leaders. It's about the people that decide to start a company and that start with a vision and want to actually succeed. And these leaders often don't have leadership skills. They've never been a leader before. So who here, raise your hand, who here knows what leadership is, the definition of leadership? Come on, guys. Yes? Yeah, you got like 80% of it. It's the art to influence people's behavior in a way wanted by the leader. Two very important things there. The art, and influence. Nothing is there about dictatorship. Nothing is there about control. Nothing is there about dominance and submission. It's about the art to influence people's behavior in a way wanted by the leader. And it's very important that when you are a leader, when you're a positive leader, that your intent is real, that you're genuine, that you don't, oh, okay, Miguel said do this, do that, so I'll do this, I'll do that. No, human beings are expert in defining, in seeing patterns. And we know when someone is fake. We know when someone is genuine. And to be a great leader, to be a positive leader, you need to be genuine. We spend more time at work than at home. So if you hate your job, if the culture of the studio, which is about creating emotion, games is an art form that allows you to make your player feel emotion. Now, if the whole way through the development cycle, you're angry, and you get slapped, and you get bullied by your leaders, what type of product will that produce, Again, you'll see it. The player will see it and will feel it. For executive, culture is your brand. So those that are from the video game industry, I can ask them, which studio will never work for? I won't say the name, but I know some AAA studio that right away they will name the name. Why? Because these studios are known to have a bad culture. These studios are known to mistreat their dev, their employee. So for these leaders of these studios, when they want to found another studio, again, it's the same thing. People know about them. People know about the type of culture that they create. And this is something that you'll often, I've tried to find example that this doesn't work, but I haven't found it yet. Culture flows from the top. Imagine the most obnoxious, egotistical, bully CEO of any studio, any company. Is it possible for that studio to have a great culture? If the leader are crooked, if the leader are evil, you will not be able to have a good culture. So it has to flow from the top. It's like a waterfall. If you have great, inspiring leader, people will want to follow lead. So I use Funcom, which I started about in 2009 in Montreal, end of 2009, beginning of 2010. And it was a beautiful 5-year experience. We launched 5 MMOs. And what I'm telling you about is just the first 18 months, when I was asked by a headhunter to take upon that mandate. And I had other experience, similar experience, but it was my first real mandate in the video game industry. I've been an executive for the last 20 years in tech company, in IT company, in electronic engineering company, and this was a new industry for me. So I had to do a lot of research about what it was and about what it entailed to be a great leader in the video game industry. The other challenge I had was that there was no MMO expertise in Montreal. Funcom is a massive multiplayer online company, and I had to build the expertise from scratch, and there was not a lot of experts in Montreal. It was the first MMO studio in Montreal. You'll notice that throughout the presentation, I'm using some reference to basically 2 books that I've read. I've done a lot of leadership training and Harvard Business School and all these things, but these 2 little books, From Good to Great, and the 7 Habits of Effective People, these 2 books covers 90% of the true philosophy of how to be a great leader and how to be an effective leader. So just read these 2 books. It's 2 weekends. Each book takes you 2 days to read. And you'll see I make a lot of reference from these 2 books. So when I did the research, the purpose of that was because I was about to lead devs from a video game industry that knew that industry, that I wanted to hire a senior dev with 10 years of experience. So who was I to be as a leader, not knowing the industry, and now I had to lead them. So I did a lot of research. It's one of the key effective habits of a great leader is to try to understand before being understood. And that sounds easy, right? Next time you have an argument at work, or next time you have an argument with your wife or your husband, stop and try to put your friend of mine aside and understand why is he talking like this? Why is he saying this? So try to understand before being understood. So that's what I was doing. There was a lot of fairness issue. Of course, Oslo, Funcom was a Norwegian company, Oslo being one of the most expensive places in the world. When we started the company, I had some Norwegian employee, which their salary was not in line with what we had in Montreal. So the fairness was a big issue. And that can create a lot of negative aspect of our culture. We had multicultural employees, so from a lot of different backgrounds. So again, I needed to understand each of the different backgrounds. And one of the other issue is I didn't have any HR. And the HR that I was able to find was a junior HR. She was 22 years old. She was just coming out of university. So we had a lot of work to do to be able to build that studio that fast. And the last thing was, which for me was not a big challenge because obviously I'm an extrovert person, and I made a lot of friends very fast talking to all the executives in the video game industry. But I started with knowing no one from the video game industry. So I had to build a network, again, to become or to be a trustworthy leader and to be proud to be the leader and to actually not be insecure about leading these super dev that I was about to hire. So let's start. Temporary offices, so that's chapter 1. Temporary offices, just a press release was out, and the media started saying Age of Caron and putting me on a pedestal like I was the one that's gonna make these great games. And I was employee number 1. There was no one else with me there. And this is a this first rule is not just a professional rule, this is a personal rule. Humility at all levels of leadership. Why? Because ego equals statu quo. When I'm perfect, I won't move, I won't learn, I won't try to understand, I'm perfect. You guys do whatever I tell you to do, I'm perfect. So when people close their mind with ego, they stop learning. When you're humble, when you really want to learn, when you know what you're good at, when you know what you know, but you do know what you don't know, then it builds a trust relationship between you and your dev. So I would never speak up telling about the game from my creative director. I would say a little bit something about it, but then I'd say, hey, I'm not the expert. My creative director will tell you more about it. You know? So humility at all levels of leadership. And when you screw up, you have to accept that your employee will tell you, sorry, man, you did a mistake there, and here's the consequences of your mistake. And you have to say, you know what, you're right. Sorry, I won't make it again. And either CEO, VP, producer, doesn't matter. Humility at all levels. So, chapter 2, we were 20 dev. So I had about 15 dev from Oslo that were transferred to Montreal, and I had 5 dev that we just started hiring. And we were in temporary offices. Was not that bad, but close enough. and one of the things is when you want to build a culture, after you did all your homework and you know what you want to create and you have the vision, then as a leader, you have to do every single interview. Why? Remember what I said? Culture flows from the top. So if you want to make sure that there's no lost in translation, you have to make sure that the core group that you hire are all positive antenna for that culture. They're repeater. They repeat the culture that you had envisioned in mind for the studio. If you don't do these interviews, 50-50 chances that it's going to happen. Most likely is what's going to happen. You're going to have 2, 3 positive antenna, and there's 2 negative one that's going to slip through that your HR hasn't been able to see. But that's why leader has to do all the interviews, up to 100, because past 100, devs started to be a little bit more complicated. The third rule is one of the most important, is one that I've seen fail over and over again in the video game industry. Authority has to be fused with responsibility. So if I tell someone, if I give you the responsibility of to do something, you have to be able to make the decision to do this. If I tell you to do something and I say, okay, do this drawing, but do it exactly like this, and 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 use that pen, and use this, then why the hell did I hire you? You know, leaders that don't trust their employee, they don't know that actually they're insulting themselves. Hey, how are you? But I'm so stupid that I hire you, but I don't trust you, so I'm a really bad hire. So I'm actually so bad in hiring that I'm not trusting the people that I hired. That's basically what you're saying to your team when you don't trust employee that you hire yourself. And again, you cannot blame the rest because you did all the interviews. So it's your responsibility, right? Fourth rule. So 50 dev, no more rule. That's a real picture, by the way. I don't know how people can go relax on this beach. So this is where it started to be a little bit more complicated, you know? Culture is in the detail. It's really, really in the detail. It's about how you speak. It's about every word that you count has weight, especially if you're the top executive, if you're the CEO, as I was at Funcom. So as an example, I go see someone, and I have an issue with his work, you know? And I go here, I go talk to him. He's sitting on his desk. Obviously, I'm a leader. You've seen this. People in the video game industry have seen this every time, you know? I go, hey, da-da-da-da-da, what did you do this, you know? And I talk with my head being above his like this. This is a dominant approach. A dog that would do this to another dog, the other, it would be a fight, instant fight. What I do instead, I grab a chair, I sit down, at the same height as him, and then I don't judge him. I don't say, you're bad. I say, the work is bad, not him. So details in everything, the way you speak, words have power, you know? Another thing I'm anal about, and the people know that this when I start a new mandate in a new company, don't use absolute word as a leader. Yeah, you never did this. We always this. We the best. We're the worst. It's all crap. You know, it's never all crap. There's some certain aspects that are not good. You can say most of the time. Again, it's not absolute. Don't use absolute word because you're lying. You're clearly lying when you use absolute words. You see it in the US election right now. They're using absolute word for everything, you know? So be precise in your language. It's a detail, but at that level, when you're 50 dev, it matters. You know, it matters that the little talk you have by the coffee machine, because that QA guy has a 2-minute time with the CEO while he's serving the coffee, so it matters. This is how you feed your positive antenna. This one, the last one, some leaders that had a little bit of ego had a hard time with that one. So how often, you guys have often heard a top leader talking to a middle-level leader saying, hey, how come this didn't, you didn't deliver this the right way? And he said, oh, don't talk to me about this. I told the employee to do it, and he didn't understand me right. Nah, I don't accept that. The reason why you're a leader, it's because you have more emotional IQ. It's because you have the ability to take your frame of mind, put it aside, and understand the frame of mind of the other person. This is exactly what I told you at the beginning. First, try to understand before being understood. So it's the leader's role. They're not leader because they're the best artists. The best artists, I want them to do art. And most of the time, the best artists, they don't want to be leader. So you're a leader because you have social skills, because you have emotional, intellectual ability to understand the other person and change your way to communicate with that person. So it's the leader role to adapt to each of his employees. So my style with my different game directors is different. With some game director, I act a certain way. With other, I act a different way. I'm genuine in both ways. It's Miguel in both ways. But it's adaptation of Miguel to make sure that my leader can understand me clearly. So now we're 100 devs, so it's growing fast. And we're building a brand new office. So one of the things is when I built the brand new office, how do you think I planned that project? We were already 100 devs, you know? Do you think I decided on everything? No. I involved every single employee in the design of the new office. And the plan that we ended up in is it was a full floor on a 14th floor of a skyscraper in Montreal. And all the executive office, including mine, were in the middle of the floor, not close to the windows, in the middle of the floor. And all our offices were glass walls. So everyone could see, they called it a fish tank. So I was a red fish in the fish tank, but in the middle of the studio. And all my exec were in the same place as me. So all the employee had all the windows and the sun and all the relaxed area. And I told some of my executives, like, Miguel, you know, why are you doing this like that? I said, well, we're paid enough that we don't need nice offices. We need to serve our dev, and we need to use our floor plan, our studio design, to enhance their creativity, enhance the home feeling that they have when they get to the studio. So really, when you do something, you have to do it with the objective in mind, with the key objective in mind. For me, it was to create an environment to enhance creativity, to enhance the well-being of the dev. That was the main objective. So I never lost track of that when we designed the studio. Chapter 5, 150 dev. Fucking politics. This is where the politics started, the internal politics, the smoking politics outside and all of this. And politics, like when I say politics, I don't mean influence or, you know, I mean the evil politics. You know, the politics, so an employee will gain certain, he perceives that he gains certain power by playing that politics. And this is a very critical moment where you have to shoot that down as quickly as possible, because that's a cancer. That's a cancer to a positive culture, politics, because things that are said in secret without actually the people being talked about even involved, this is really, really, really bad for the positive culture. I couldn't find an English sentence that rhymed, that sounded more beautiful, but as I said, I'm French-Canadian. So focus sur l'être et non le paraître. It means focus on genuine value that you create from your behavior, and not try to convince others that you have a different type of behavior. So focus on the true thing, not on the smoke screen in front of you. Be real. You know, one of the war that leaders have to win every time is the war between perception and reality. Humanity lives in perception. Again, sorry to mention the US again, but we see it there so much. It's all a war of perception. And the truth, even Trump said it, we don't care about the truth. You know, well, that's not a positive leadership. So positive leader care about the truth. So one of the things that very quickly at this level, I found out that some of my leaders wouldn't become a positive antenna. And the beauty is if you do all the right step, I didn't even have to fire this leader. The culture was not finished yet, but was already strong enough that this leader got ejected. The studio just ejected them without me having to do anything. That's the beauty of a culture. Because these leaders were not focusing on adding value to the studio, they were focusing on adding value to themselves. The seventh rule. So this one is one of my friend from Middle East that told me it's a Middle East proverb, and it's a guy that was lost with his camel in the desert, and he saw an oasis, and there was a Muslim sheikh, a priest, Muslim priest in the oasis, and the guy said, okay. Should I trust God and not tie my camel for the night, and knowing that God will protect it and He will be there when I wake up? Or, priest, should I not trust God and tie my camel? And the priest very quickly answered to him, always trust God, but tie your camel. You know? So trust is one of the most important aspects. I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, trust your employee. Allow them to fail. Allow them to fail fast. Allow them to fail a lot. And allow them to fail small. And that's how they learn. Failing is actually a milestone to success. It's not a failing. It's just a milestone to success. But you have to trust them. And then at 100 dev, it was time to add in some process as well. A little bit of process. But you have to be careful, because one of the things is, as you grow, and the complexity of the studio gets bigger, then it's getting a little bit harder to attract super high-performing talent. And when you want to try to simplify it by adding processes, often you complexify it. So you have to add just the right amount of processes and the right amount of system. One of the very key elements that I've implemented at that level was the 360 evaluation. We all used to have this yearly evaluation from your boss. Your boss say, oh, OK, you did a great job this year. You get 7 on this, 8 on that, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And here's a 7% increase of salary. OK, fine. But the 360 is the reverse. The 360 is where all your teammates evaluate you anonymously, evaluate their leader, to rank their leader. And when I talked about that to my leadership team, I had about 30% of my executive that said, no way, Miguel, I'll resign if you do this. And you know what? What I decided to do is I told HR in front of everyone, I said, we're going to do 360 eval, and all the employees get to evaluate the CEO, me as well. And I said to HR in front of everyone, don't send the result to me, send it to the studio. I'll see the result in the same time as the studio, which was not the case for my other leaders, where the evaluation from the employee was private. But mine, I decided to make it public. And so that was my way to use my veto and say, we're doing this, you know? So if I'm showing myself naked in front of the studio, then no other executive can afford not to do that, right? So I got a really good ranking, a good grade, 87%. And guess what? The 30% of my executive that didn't want to do this were the bottom 30%. And 2 of them resigned after that. So again, I didn't fire them. The culture ejected them again another time. I just gave a few tools to the culture, and the culture did the rest of the work. So now, chapter 6. We're getting almost to full studio now, full studio size. And sharpen the saw is another of the habit of the 7 habits of effective people. It means learn, evolve, train, get better at every aspect of your persona. The way Stephen Covey talks about it, he talks about the 3 aspects of your persona. Your health. If you're unhealthy, you cannot be a great leader. If by the time that you go up the stairs to talk to your team, you're like, like, how can you be a good leader? A good leader is someone that controls his environment, his personal environment. He controls his health, he controls his temper, he controls the way he interacts with people. This is why I think a leader has to evolve daily, has to wonder every night when he goes to bed, was I a better CEO today than I was yesterday? It's a key element. The second aspect is the mind, learning, getting better. I read a book a week, and I've read a book a week since I'm 15 years old. And this is something that is healthy, and it's very, very good both on your personal life and your professional life. And the last part is, Stephen Covey called it spiritual. Let's call it emotional well-being, depending on your spiritual belief. But if you're an unhappy person, if you're a grumpy person, if you're angry against the world, you cannot be a positive leader either. So you have to be balanced, and you have to grow physically, mentally, and emotionally as well. So that's what I was training all my leads to do, because I couldn't be anywhere. I couldn't be everywhere all at the same time. So now it was time to make me useless. It was time that every of my leaders were in synchronization with the culture that I had in mind, I had envisioned. This is the part where my personal vision, when I started the studio, I passed it over to my leaders. And it was our personal vision now. It was not mine anymore. It was ours. It was the whole studio. So, full staff, 18 months since the studio creation, 250 dev. Most important rules, leader serve. We serve our employee. The employee doesn't serve us. Devs in the video game industry, they're artists. They're the one creating the value. Take the 10 best executive of the whole video game industry, put them in a room for 48 hours, and ask them to do a game jam and to design a game. No game will come up after 48 hours, and only half the executive will exit the room because they killed the other half. That's what is going to happen. Take 10 QA, which is the entry-level job, usually paid minimum salary in the video game industry, put them in a room, and you might have a AAA game coming out of that. I'm exaggerating, but you'll have a game for sure, and you most likely have a fun game coming out of that. That's the key proof that executives are not the one creating the value. They're the catalyst of the value. But the art itself, the devs is the bullet. I'm the black powder behind the bullet. I'm the catalyst. I'm the one ejecting the bullet. And if I take a metal bullet and I throw it strong, I can still hurt someone. But black powder just make noise. And an executive without a good team just make noise. And an executive without a good culture just make noise. Blah, 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 we're the best, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, you don't know even how to make a game, you know? Your team knows how to make a game. So you have to serve them. I see often my role as a FIFA agent, superstar team agent, you know? So I have, you know, athletes, and then my job is to make sure that they're happy, make sure they perform well, and make sure they entertain the world. The employee are the one creating your business value. So do you see like a throne, a king throne in the middle with all my execs? No, everyone is there. I'm actually right here. This is the 22-year-old HR that hired. You see all these devs. At that moment, I had 3 people out of 250 not making games. Me, Kim, HR, and accounting. So 3 people not making game. Everyone else was making game. So after a big project, Funcom is making MMOs, right? So we had a big project, and often at the end of a big project, you have to make cuts, you know. And this time, we had to make 50, between 50 and 60 cuts after the release of The Secret World. And I've never done that in my life. All my other businesses had double-digit growth year over year over year. So I've never had to do a mass layoff. And it's something I was not feeling good about. Especially that I had to do this because us business people, we make a bad business decision. We decided to launch Secret World as a subscription game instead of a free-to-play game. And in Montreal, including myself, we tried to convince head office not to do that. But then head office forced us to do that. And we know that this would have consequences of not achieving our revenue target and then having to do a little bit of layoff. And I was really not comfortable with that. I was not comfortable in impacting personal life of employees because us executive, even though I was against that, I'm still an executive. So I was still part of the executive. Us executive, we made a bad call. If we made a bad call, we have to deal with the consequences, not the employee. So what I decided to do is, with the network that I've built in Montreal, I reached out to every CEO of major AAA studio in Montreal. Yanis from Ubisoft, and Stéphane Dastou was the CEO of Eidos. And then I decided to organize a job fair inside my studio with HR team from every one of my competitors. So when I announced to the 250 employees, I said, OK, guys, don't panic. There's going to be 60 cut. 60 of you will be cut. But Kim will help you out with your CV and LinkedIn Monday, and then we'll coach you on Tuesday because we have a job fair with 12 studios coming for Wednesday and Thursday to interview every single one of you. Because what I told the other studio is you have to interview every single one. You can do a 5-minute interview if you're not interested, but everyone has to be interviewed. So every one of my 60 devs that were cut had 12 interviews in 2 days, which was about 90% of the Montreal job market. You know, there was 600 jobs available, and there were 60. So I told them, I said, guys, if you don't get a job, it's a message, because there's a lot more demand than there's offer. So we started doing that, and something happened in a very weird way. It became a festive moment. That week that I announced 60 job cut became a party, because all these people were lining up and you had the Ubisoft sign in one of my conference rooms. And my office was Warner Brother. In my CEO office, I gave it to Warner Brother to do the interviews. And you had these logos, and then an employee would come and say, hey, I got an offer. And then everyone in the studio would clap, hey, good job, good job. So it actually became kind of a festive thing. And there was an article which made me really laugh from Business News that says, I invited the wolf in the sheep yard, you know? And I told the journalist, if you don't read French, but if you read the interview, I told her, I said, actually, no. I said, I sent 60 wolves in 12 sheep yard. Because now these employees were loyal to me because he said, this guy, even if he didn't have to, he just could have fired us, you know? He actually went further to try to diminish the impact of the bad decision that executive made. And actually, the end result of that was that by Friday, 92% of all my 60 dev had a new job offer at a higher salary, obviously, because often they offer a higher salary, which means I didn't have to do a mass layoff. In government penalty, I saved $400,000. So the studio saved $400,000. On top of that, because I didn't fire them, they resigned. And the last thing, I made friends with a lot of studios that save a lot of money from headhunting fees, which is 1, 2, 3 months salary of an employee that you have to pay to the headhunter. So all the other CEO were like, oh, thanks, Miguel. That was very cool, you know? And now this trend is even happening in California. I was the first one to do something like this, and it made babies. So the culture that we create at Funcom even influenced other studios. And then what happened after that, I actually left Funcom. And, but when I left Funcom, I sold it to a friend. And now Funcom Montreal, it's called Envisio Creation. And the GM is that 22-year-old HR recruiter that I recruited, and she's now the GM. And a lot of my past employees actually came back to Funcom. So, well, to Funcom, to the Envisio. So it's something that actually will last even after you're gone. If you build a positive culture, it will last forever. It will survive you. It will survive your business. It will influence other business. I call this a cultural rubber band. You know, when I moved to start the online studio at Behavior with 2 major projects, Star Citizen and Warhammer 40K Eternal Crusade, within the first 2 months, 30 of my past dev joined me in 2 months. Behavior couldn't believe it. It was a lineup of people wanting to work in an online studio just because they knew I would create the same type of culture that we created together at Funcom. Are leaders perfect? Hell no. Remember, humility. I really love this. This is when I know my job is done. Is when I have a bad day, because leaders have bad days sometimes, right? And I'll do something that goes against even the coaching that I do. And then one of my employee, QA to VP, will say, hey, Miguel, in that meeting, you were tough a bit. You judged the guy. You didn't judge his work. And you told us to be careful with that. And I'm like, oh, sorry, man. Yeah, I'm having a bad day, you know? But then internally, I'm smiling because now I know my job is done. I know the culture will self-preserve itself. The culture will make sure that even me will be corrected if I go outside the culture rules that we've created together. And this is something that, again, I've seen leaders saying, why are you leaving us? You know, you're not loyal to me. Well, how come? I did everything. I gave you a job. Yeah, you give me a job. I created value for you, you know. Often leaders want you to be loyal to them, loyal to the company. But again, it's an egotistical trip that they want to do this. Don't ask an employee to be loyal to you. Ask them to be loyal to your culture, to the way of doing things, to the way of thinking, to the way of interacting. Be loyal to the culture, not to the company, not to the CEO. Because you know what? You shouldn't slow your leaders down. Allow them to surpass you. They brought you where you are, so allow them to shine. Allow them to grow their full potential. And by asking them to be loyal and follow me, you know, it's more of a, yeah, I have my minions, and I want my minions to follow me, you know? Don't do that. a lot of the people that worked for me in the past are now CEOs, on our GM, and I'm making me so proud when I see their career growing. I'll show you some example of that. So this is just a little bit take of what it was. I'm trying to, with a few pictures, just show you the culture that our leaders, the devs, and we were able to create at Funcom. So if you see this guy, it was my 26-year-old CTO from Portugal. So he was the Funcom CTO, Funcom Montreal CTO. I hired him from Portugal. His name is Rui. He's now the CEO in Oslo of the whole company. So I think now he's probably 30 years old-ish, 30, 31 years old. And he came as a young 26, super genius technologue, but he soaked in everything that I've taught him about leadership and even enhanced it. So he's a fantastic CEO, and is one of the only reasons why Funcom still exists is because of Rui. Kim is now the GM of Envisio creation. I think she was like 22, 23 years old there. This is a party that we did for Christmas, and you see my kids there. They're bigger than me now, but you see them there. We allowed dogs in the office, so employee could bring their dog in the office. That actually is my seat and my desk, and that's the dog there. We did Halloween parties all the time, and we invited employees, kids, to do play testing for us. We really created an environment that felt like home, and that's what a culture does to you. And if we spend more time at work than we spend at home, you owe it to yourself to work in an environment which you feel happy. You know, my key element for me that I tell the devs is, you know what, tell me, if on Sunday night, you're like, oh, fuck, it's Monday tomorrow, you know, then that means I'm doing something wrong. On Sunday night, I start feeling euphoria. Tomorrow is Monday, you know, I missed my guys, I missed seeing the studio. I've been away for the studio now since Thursday, and I can't wait for tomorrow, and I'm landing at 2 p.m. I'm not going home. I'm going back to the studio because I miss these guys. So this is the goal you should have, is like, oh no, man, I cannot stay home. I have to go to the studio. I miss these guys. And if you're not in that environment, then MadFinger is hiring. So apply to MadFinger, jobs@madfinger.com. So right now we have 5 more minutes. So I want to show you, before I ask question, I want to show you, I didn't want to show you the video at the beginning because it's more promotional about MadFinger, and that's not related to what we want to do. But yes, in MadFinger we're growing. I've been hired 6 months ago. We're the leader of FPS on mobile. We've done 10 games the last 6 years. We've reached 160 million downloads, organic downloads, since we never did pay acquisition. We don't do pay acquisition. We don't do banners. We don't do marketing. We focus, well, we do marketing, but not paid acquisition. We don't buy users. We make great games. They get featured, and that's it. that's the way MadFinger does things. And we're going to show you a video of our new game that was announced, Shadowgun Legend. It's coming soft launch, probably Q1 2017. It's a full online persistent shooter. Just to give you an indication of, I don't want to use absolute words saying we're the best FPS on mobile. So what I'll do, instead I'll quote you an article that came out from Android Authority that named the 10 best FPS ever made on Android for mobile since Android exists. And we hold 4 of the 10 position, which is the last 4 games we shipped. And people are trying to copy games that we done 4 years ago. So Shadowgun Dead Zone is a game that it's a PvP battle arena, third-person shooter, 10v10, that we did that 5 years ago. And people are trying to be able technically to do this. Now, what I'm going to show you as a announcement trailer is a 100% in-game asset. It's the first message we got from our farthest colony that we're being attacked by a mysterious race of alien. And the video we'll release in a month from now, you'll see what happened when we send the Shadowgun unit to deal with that. But right now, we're just being beaten by the alien. One of the things you love about Shadowgun Legend is the humor. We have a lot of quirky humor. Czech people have a very raw humor, and then you'll be able to see it there. So if you can show the video, and I'll take question afterwards. This is running on an NVIDIA tablet. And so if you're in the video game industry and you want to work in the type of culture that I mentioned to you, where we extend that even to sharing our profit with our devs. So MadFinger shares our profit, and we're a very profitable company, and we share our profit with a dev and with a bonus scheme to make them feel like we're giving them dividend, basically, or royalty. So we're very innovative in the way we do stuff. So just either come talk to me or send a CV to jobs@madfingergames.com. So now I'll take some questions. If anyone has questions. You're like the Czech. When I do this in Czech Republic, the Czechs are introverts, and I say, hey, questions. No one, shh. I have to name someone. No? No question? Perfect. Thank you.